Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Scott's podcast series. I am delighted to have Darren Heitner. Darren, welcome to my podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. So why don't you before we start with the questions, introduce yourself. I know you're a big-time sports entertainment attorney with specialization on the NIL, which we'll get into, but introduce yourself to see how you got to where you are today.
Born and raised and still living in South Florida, spent 7 years in Gainesville, where I went for undergrad and for law school, and where I currently teach a sports law class. And how I got to where I am today, I'd say, is a confluence of a lot of events and things, including obviously going to law school, but writing for Forbes for 6 years, starting Sports Agent Blog 16 years ago, practicing law at a couple of firms before starting my own back in June 2014. Et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore your listeners.
Awesome, my man. And really, NIL, name, image, likeness, a major story in the college athletic landscape over the last, almost 3 months now, came out around July 1. What are your thoughts on it? Do you believe student athletes should be getting paid?
Oh, of course. That's the softest softball ever. I have been advocating for college athletes to be paid much longer ago than July 1, 2021, when it first became an opportunity, much before September 2019, when I had the unique opportunity to work on crafting the legislation in the state of Florida to become the first state with a July 1, 2021 effective date. I had been writing about this probably almost for a decade now and have absolutely championed this. I've always thought there was no justification to exclude college athletes from rights of publicity that literally every other individual in the United States enjoy. And so I'm proud that finally these athletes have these opportunities. And we've seen over 3 months a variety of different types of contracts and deals entered into. And I think we're just scratching the surface.
For sure. And this goes into more, diving deeper in this. I'm a sports biz guy. As you probably know, I worked in college athletics, really, especially on the ticketing side for 7+ years. How is this going to evolve? Do you think you see a day where there's like a CBA of college? I know you mentioned Mark Emmert and bylaws and all that stuff, where athletic departments and the NCAA are going to get a cut of the NILs of student athletes?
No, I don't think that we're ever going to find a scenario where the NCAA, the colleges, the conferences ever receive a commission on what the athletes are receiving. In fact, there's case law that would prevent that from occurring. In fact, I would actually go the other direction. I think it's feasible and fathomable that at some point in time in the future, we could actually see the athletes take a percentage from what the schools and the conferences are earning. Because right now we're in a situation where for the first time, college athletes can earn money off of their names, images, and likenesses. But what about taking a piece off of all the ticket sales and concessions and from perhaps some of the sponsorships that the universities and athletic departments have been able to procure for themselves? This is off the backs of those athletes. Without those athletes, none of these deals or revenue-making opportunities would even be in place. And so I think there's an argument to be made that college athletes actually deserve an even larger piece of the pie, but not vice versa.
Very interesting take on that. And I'm all for that too, for student athletes getting paid and have them obviously promote ticket sales marketing and get a cut from that also. I think it's widely deserved on their part. And I see that you're hosting, this isn't airing until Wednesday, tomorrow. So your Twitter space with Darren Ravel is already going to go on this evening. Why the hell does he think NILs have no value?
I love Darren. And while we were going back and forth on Twitter the other day, it may have seemed as though it was getting quite aggressive, but behind the scenes, we were texting and saying, this is what Twitter is for. At the end of the day, we love each other. I understand where he's coming from. What Darren Ravel is essentially saying is that brands probably risked perhaps a lot, maybe not a lot, but on the fact that some of these athletes who were deemed to be the most marketable going into the college football season are all of a sudden perhaps not performing up to the level that these brands expected, and or their teams are not really going to be in contention for a national title at the end of the year. And I think that's clearly the case with Clemson now having 2 losses. and with their quarterback, DJU, who was probably one of, if not the most marketable names going into the season. So I think what Darren was trying to say was that perhaps there's some buyer's remorse there. And I have a lot of counters to that, but one of them being these brands have largely already received quite a bit of return on investment, and those investments have been quite small in comparison to their advertising spends elsewhere. So I'm not that concerned. And I think we're only going to see more spending here.
For sure. I agree with your point, and I'll be tuning into your Twitter space tonight to see Darren's side of the story on this. I'm a big fan of Darren Revelle too, by the way, and we always have good dialogue. And really, last question too, this is a perfect segue into this one. Obviously, Learfield IMG College, biggest player in the multimedia space. Will this affect their business getting sponsors, for potentially having the sponsors spend the money on the student athletes for NILs?
I think that was a big fear leading up to July 1. We had not seen any brands pull out of their arrangements with universities. And in fact, look at the professional landscape. We've seen the same brands get involved with teams and leagues who are also generating business and doing deals with the actual athlete performers. And I think that's going to be true here too, especially when brands want to be using the university logos, university names. And guess what? They're going to have a much better chance of doing so if they already have that relationship with the school and then try to do deals with the athletes. So I don't envision brands pulling out of deals with the schools. In fact, there may be added value now for brands that want to both capture the relationship with the athlete and also have that relationship with the university. You may see an even greater and multiple on their return of investment. So no fear on my end.
No fear on your end. I'm sure that's alerting news to the IMG Learfield multimedia sales reps across the industry. But Darren, thank you so much for coming on. Follow Darren on Twitter at Darren Heitner. Anything else you want to plug before we go?
Not at all. Keep up the great work. Thanks.
Thanks, Darren. Have a great day.